Hey there, boss. I fix Pokemon for everyone. And if you stick with me, you'll be thinking like a sophisticated video game executive and investor. Now, as I'm sure many of you know, there's been a consensus in the Pokemon community that the games just aren't the same anymore. Now, although there are a lot of factors that contribute to this, most people agree that development times on these Pokemon games are just not long enough. This argument is absolutely supported by the 2021 release of Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. These games mark the first time that Game Freak outsourced the development of a main series Pokemon game to a third-party developer. And although the game sold great, I think we could all tell that Game Freak did not develop these games. But let's be honest, the problem certainly didn't start with Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Actually, depending on who you ask, they started as far back as 2013 with Pokemon X and Y. For a lot of people, these games were when the Pokemon formula started getting really stale. Either way though, I think we can all agree that by Gen 8, something was wrong. But the games themselves made too much money. Not only was there no financial incentive for Game Freak or Nintendo to change anything, they would actually be doing a disservice to their investors by making anything more than small tweaks to the formula that's made them so much money thus far. And in case you were wondering, they care way more about their investors than they ever will about the people who buy their game. But that's where I come in. You see, by taking an in-depth look at the release financials of Pokemon, I was able to identify exactly why Pokemon is allergic to change and what can be done about it. And of course, due to my status as everyone's favorite banker, investor, geek fusion, I had to make sure that my plan would lead to increased profits. Otherwise, what the hell is the point? Now, before we get into today's discussion, please consider liking the video and hitting the subscribe button. Also, if you happen to know anyone else who would enjoy listening to a real-life banker/geek rant about his favorite media franchises, please share this video with them. Either way, let's get straight into it. So, just to be clear, the Pokémon Company is a private company in Japan. This means that there are no real reporting requirements that they have to follow. Normally, that might be the end of this video right there. We don't have any information, and so therefore we can't actually draw conclusions on said information. However, luckily for us, the Japanese government likes to release minimal amounts of financial data on their private companies. From the Japanese government, we know that Pokemon made roughly $4 billion in the 2022 fiscal year, which lasted from April 2021 to March 2022. Of that $4 billion, about $1.6 billion came from sales, a category that includes the sale of games like the aforementioned Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and Pokemon Legends Arceus, as well as Pokemon Go and the Pokemon trading card game. We also know that the majority of the remaining $2.4 billion comes from the bread and butter of the Pokemon Company, that being licensing contracts. Most people that follow the franchise tend to know that Pokemon makes most of its money from licensing contracts. That is, selling the right to use the Pokemon IP in all sorts of different types of commerce. Getting back on track, the Japanese government provides us with another crucial piece of information. Just knowing the amount of money any business makes is in reality not particularly helpful. We need to understand their expenses in order to give that revenue number any type of context. In this case, the Pokemon Company's operating profit is roughly $420 million, meaning that they spent roughly 3.5 out of the $4 billion on various expenses. Another way to say that same thing is that it has an operating margin of only 10%. This means that for every $1 of revenue that they make, only 10 cents will be kept as profit. Although acceptable, this rate of 10% could be so much better. It would be important that any solution that we come up with to fix Pokemon also leads to an operating margin that is higher than the current 10%. The final piece of important information is once again just to give context to these financials. We are told that 2022 was a record year financially for Pokemon. Essentially, that there was a 70% increase in sales and a 115% increase in operating profit. That is, compared to 2021. And just like that, we're ready to get on to the fun part. Now that we have all that background information out of the way, remember when I promised to help you think like a video game executive and investor? Well, that's exactly what we're about to do. When we look at the breakdown of the financials, it is clear that the release of new main series games is a boost to both the game sales and the also important licensing revenue. It's no wonder that the current model is to pump as many main series games out as possible, as soon as possible, with as little regard as to whether or not the games will meet up with fan expectations. I mean, come on. The company's profits are about double on years that they release a main series game compared to the years where they don't. Of course these games are rushed. And unless they find a way to supplement that $1 billion, you better believe they're gonna keep rushing out these games. And I don't blame them one bit. Well, I found their $1 billion. Or should I say, unlocked. The good news is that the solution to all of these problems is already in the Pokemon Company's portfolio. Kinda. I think now is a good time to introduce you guys to the crux of the solution, Pokémon Go. I'm sure most people here know what Pokémon Go is, but just to give a quick overview. Pokémon Go is an extremely popular mobile game developed by Niantic, a private game developer who focuses on augmented reality mobile gaming. And Pokémon Go has been an absolute cash cow since its release in 2016. Let's think about it. Pokémon Go is a franchise that has already proven itself economically with well over $6 billion in lifetime revenues since inception in 2016. Furthermore, because it is playable on the cell phone, it also boasts a player base that is much larger than that of any main series game that they've ever made. From a growth perspective, Pokémon Go has shown that it can consistently grow revenues while also keeping costs low. Because it's a phone app, there's no incremental cost to adding another player. They don't have to make another cartridge or anything of the sort. So the solution is for Pokemon to turn its focus on the cash cow that is Pokemon Go, at least for a while. The Pokemon Company could use Pokemon Go to debut some new Pokemon designs before they ever come out on console games. This would allow for licensing of these new designs to begin in a timely manner without having to release a brand new game just to get that licensing revenue. By focusing marketing efforts on Pokemon Go, as well as using it as a launch-off point for new Pokemon, gimmicks, events, and whatever else they can think of, the app will likely experience enough growth to more than make up for any revenues lost by delaying the main series title. Between 2016 and 2021, for example, Pokemon Go had an average annual revenue growth rate of about 8%. If we apply that 8% growth rate moving forward, Pokemon Go will be making well over $1 billion a year within about 2 years or so. And just like that, they now have time to make good main series games that fans will love and will buy up even more than they currently do. Alright everybody, now I'd like to wrap things up with a short segment I'd like to call the Bake Off. During this segment, I'll be giving a short pitch of my idea to Game Freak, Nintendo / the Pokemon Company. This pitch is just for fun, so please leave a comment below letting me know if my pitch was able to convince you, why or why not. And without further ado, welcome to my bake-off pitch with the Pokémon Company. The Pokémon Company is one of the most recognizable names in media and has enjoyed that status for over 2 decades. Nothing great lasts forever, and so it is very important that you, the Pokémon Company, evolve alongside the tastes and habits of your consumer. Luckily for all of us, Your company has put together such an impressive portfolio of games that the answer for that evolution is already in your portfolio. It is our opinion that now is the best possible time for the Pokémon Company to buy Niantic Labs and bring the Pokémon Go IP in-house. In the eyes of the consumer, Pokémon Go, and thus Niantic, is already so strongly linked to the Pokémon Company that many people already believe they are one and the same. Anything that Niantic as a company were to do would be seen as endorsed by the Pokémon Company, giving you less control of your own brand in the eyes of the consumer. Although the purchase of Niantic Labs would be a great move strategically for your company, this move is underpinned by the financial sense that it makes. Buying Niantic Labs would help smooth out the company's cash flows, especially during years in which new main series titles are not released. Pokémon Go can be a new vessel by which you could release creatures sooner and start licensing products with them. Pokémon Go has over 1 billion downloads, meaning that more people have played Pokémon Go than all the other main series games combined. A title that important should not be left outside of your purview. Now, we have Niantic valued at about $7.9 billion. This value is largely driven by Pokémon Go and the success of that game, and further illustrates the value that lies dormant inside of your portfolio of games. Pokémon Go will continue to succeed, so the price of a potential deal later down the line could go up exponentially. We believe that this deal could quite easily net you returns in the high teens to low 20s. The synergy between the two companies would be very valuable. From our perspective, this one is a real no-brainer.